This is Popeye from FederalJack.com. Don't miss my show, Down the Rabbit Hole, Sundays from 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the Orion Talk Radio Network. Welcome back. It is Wednesday, June 22nd, 2011. I'm your host, Popeye, and this is Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm fired up today. I'm in a foul mood. I've been working on the page I was talking about in the first segment, and before I forget, because I'm going to get back into 9/11, I just want to tell you guys, go to the front of Federal Jack. Within the next day or so on the right-hand side, I'll have a widget with a picture. You can just click on it. It'll bring you to the page. But for right now, if you go to Federal Jack under the header, when you get to FederalJack.com, you'll see one of the things up in the top header there. It's a special. On PCs, you can highlight it, or on a Mac, you click on it, and it'll bring the drop-down menu. It'll pop down. About halfway down in the middle, you'll see one that says Nate. There's a couple of events there, but one of them says because there are a couple different pages that we've put up and put together over the years. But one of them says NATO and Al Qaeda war crimes in Libya, and that's the page I just made. Just click on that for right now, and it'll have links to articles. I'm putting up more because Susan Lindauer is working on another article, very in depth. So, in fact, after the show, I got to hit her up and contact her about the article and everything. But it'll be updated with newer videos and everything through over the course of the next couple of days. And I want you guys to push this, not because of gore factor or anything else, but because we have to get the truth out. We need to get the people of this country to see what's going on, so they put a halt to this war. The reason why you see all this playing around and this song and dance, this kabuki theater of bringing people out of Afghanistan is because the general public is starting to get pissed off, just like they did with Vietnam. And that's what helped shut Nam down. And that's what we need to get, is the sleeping giant pissed about all these foreign wars. So hopefully the general populace will see what we're doing. So you can check that out. And again, I'll be letting you guys know about it in the future, and I'll be having Susan back on. She's going to be coming back on once or twice a month as a correspondent to let me, to let the listeners and everybody know what's going on and keep everybody apprised. So, all right, getting back into 9/11. I was talking about the telephone calls in the last segment. Well, the FBI report on phone calls from United Flight 93 now says that Tom Burnett used a seatback phone to call his wife, Dina Burnett, although she had reported, and still to this day reports, that his cell phone number came up on her phone's caller ID. And they've never been able to explain that away, because the original story was, of course, because he called from his cell phone. And then once the evidence came out that it wasn't possible back then, for the technology didn't exist for cell phone calls to be made from 30 or 40,000 feet, they had no choice but to change the report to it was an air phone. But how would an air phone pop up her husband's cell phone number, especially 10 years ago, because cell phones weren't as popular as they are today. In fact, it was the event of 9/11 that actually made cell phones more popular, because of the whole cell phone call myth, and that people were able to say to their loved ones, I love you, I'm going to die, and say their last goodbyes. And everybody and their mother started getting cell phones, and then they started making family share plans and all this other crap. It's kind of amazing how one thing goes hand in hand with another. Now, again, they've never explained it, and Dina Burnett has never changed her story. But, of course, the FBI and the federal government have. So when you have somebody changing their story over and over again, usually you call them a liar. In a court of law, if this actually went to a real court of law, this would, any real judge worth his weight in gold would freak about it. So, of course, most judges wouldn't get as far as that, because the federal government will never let it get that way. Unless we, the people, stand up and say, enough is enough, we want a real investigation. The federal government doesn't say, just because they say, well, we already did an investigation, 9/11. Now, you did a whitewash investigation, and everybody and anybody knows it. Fire Engineering Magazine called it a half-baked farce. And that's a well-respected magazine in the firefighting community. It's been around for over 100 years. Fire Engineering Magazine. Okay, and just so people understand, Popular Mechanics, a couple months before they did their hit piece on 9/11 Truth, they fired all the editors that were there for like 25 and 30 years, and these guys all had PhDs in engineering and everything else. And in they brought this little geeky schmuck that you see with the ruffled hair, the guy that goes on Glenn Beck. I forget his name, and he's got glasses. You know, he refutes the FEMA camps and 9/11 Truth and everything else. Yeah, you know what his job used to be before he was at Popular Mechanics? He was the editor over at Entertainment Weekly magazine. So before they do an investigation into the quote-unquote biggest terror attack ever in this nation's history, they fire the guys that have 25, 30 years experience as engineers, degrees. They've been there at the magazine. They know everything. These were the head editor and, his whole editorial staff. Fired them all. Fired every single one of them and replaced them all with new people. People like this guy. Tell me what the hell kind of qualifications this turd has to be telling engineers and architects that they're crazy, or telling scientists that they're crazy, or telling firefighters that were there that they're crazy, or telling you, me, or anybody else, for that matter, that we're crazy because we understand basic science and physics. It's a game. It's misdirection. They don't want you looking at the obvious facts. NIST, even in their report on Building 7, they literally, you can go look it up, it says, then a miracle occurred. That's the official government theory, is that a miracle occurred and that it has a low probability of occurrence. So they're telling you it has a snowball's chance in hell that this actually occurred. But they're invading countries based on these government reports. So keep that in your hat. Just remember that. How about the fact that Hani Hanyour, this guy couldn't fly a single engine plane. Okay? Could not fly it. But yet he steered a 757, Flight 77, supposedly, into the Pentagon. Now, the authors of the Popular Mechanics report explain this little anomaly away by saying, oh, well, he had it on autopilot most of the time, and then took the controls at, the final little loop-de-loop into the Pentagon. Well, that was the hardest maneuver of the whole thing. Everything else was just straight-line flying, which he could have done, if he had known how to fly. Obviously, if he had the skills to pull off this loop-de-loop, then he should have had the skills to fly it in a single straight line. I mean, that doesn't make sense. That's like saying you have the skills to run, but you can't walk. Right? You have to learn to walk before you can run. And yet the 9/11 Commission wants you to believe that this guy who, in the terms of running or walking, couldn't walk, but he's running like Jackie Joyner Kersey. Okay, I don't believe it. The trainers that trained Hani Hanyour said there was no way, none at all, that guy, he could have flown Flight 77 into the Pentagon the way they say it hit. The air traffic controllers didn't even think it was a passenger jet because of the way it flew. Pilots for 9/11 Truth have shown it's impossible for a plane to have flown that low at the speed that they say it would have. The plane would have literally been torn apart because of the density of the air. The air is denser down here. It's less dense when you get up higher. It's denser down here, so the density of the air was thicker. The plane wouldn't be able to do it. Pilots for 9/11 Truth, and these are all professional pilots, 30, 40-year experienced pilots, they'll tell you there's no way the plane could have done that. They say it flew straight, like, 8 or 11 feet off the ground and straight into the Pentagon? You can't do that with a commercial airliner that size. That's comical. Come on, people. Use your common sense. Think about things for a minute. Don't just buy into what people feed you. Don't listen to the boob tube. Turn that crap off. Sit down and listen. I know sometimes 9/11 truthers are a little, much to handle sometimes. I understand that. Sometimes they, I used to be like that when I first got into this years ago, and a lot of the younger guys are like that. They're very energetic, and they want you to understand what's going on. You know what? That's good. But I understand sometimes they give you too much. Not a problem. Baby steps, one thing at a time. But check it out. Check out the fact that you can't just discard. And these facts do not back up the government's official conspiracy theory of 9/11. They actually refute it, crap all over it. We'll be right back. Go to break. Stay tuned. This is Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Popeye from federaljack.com. Check out my website during the break.
Now I realize that Uncle Sam was not befriending me. He was only using me to be friends with the enemy, a presidential terrorist. Ain't that a contradiction? I guess it goes to show the truth is stranger than fiction. But they don't even show the truth when soldiers are missing. I'm only trying to show the truth.